Hallo Marco, herzlich willkommen. Schön, dass du da bist, dass du dir Zeit nimmst. Ja, ich habe dich eingeladen, um dir ein paar Fragen zu stellen zum Thema vom Glauben reden, von Jesus erzählen. Was denkst du, warum habe ich dich eingeladen?
I've got no idea, Felix. No, I've got no idea. I think, well, I would venture to say maybe it's, I had the opportunity to become friends with some of the leaders in your community, and it's been a joy to get to know the church better. And so today is also just a fantastic opportunity. Thanks.
Okay. Genau. Du hast gerade gesagt, du bist in Kontakt mit der Gemeinde, du warst mal im Kirchengemeinderat und hast da was erzählt. Wir haben dich ja nicht zufällig irgendwie eingeladen, sondern du gehörst zu einer Organisation, die heißt All Nations. Und All Nations hat sich zur Aufgabe gemacht, in der ganzen Welt, also All Nations, in der ganzen Welt Menschen mit Jesus in Kontakt zu bringen. Was ist deine Motivation, dabei mitzumachen?
Wow, yeah, that's a big question. We encountered Jesus in a way, myself and my wife, Maxie, that just changed our lives forever. We had an invitation also to go to a small city on the southern border of Syria, just as the Syrian war broke out. Mm-hmm. And we encountered many Syrian families there that had encounters with a man dressed in white shining like the sun. And the more we spent time with him, we realized that they were having experiences of Jesus that was impacting families and this community. Mm. So we saw God at work, drawing people to himself. And we fell in love with his mission to join him, to show the world how good he is. And that has become something of a passion for us. Mm-hmm. You can almost call it like an apostolic passion, to go and to simply stand with people on the fringes and to love and to point them to our King.
Also, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, habt ihr bei anderen etwas entdeckt, was euch begeistert hat und wodurch ihr Jesus quasi in Action gesehen habt. Gott sozusagen live am Werk.
That's right. That's correct. Exactly. We, in many ways, when we went, we had the hope that we might impact other people with the gospel. Mm-hmm. But then we found God at work already. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we found him impacting us and changing our lives. So yes, we through these experiences, we've fallen in love with Jesus and his mission. His mission, the words where Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Mm-hmm. And at the core of his ministry, you find a God that is so busy loving us that he has no time to condemn us. and that's what we found. Mm-hmm. And saying yes to Jesus and doing that with him, we felt God inviting us to say, join me in showing this world how good I am. So yes, we found God at work.
Und wie erlebst du das ganz persönlich, dass Jesus dich liebt?
Yeah, well, in my own brokenness, my own faults and mistakes, the fact that I can throw myself at a loving God and say, show mercy, and I need your help. Mm-hmm. And often that's a daily practice. But it's in my marriage, it's in my work, it's in my relationships with other people. Mm-hmm. We've come to learn that discipleship is not an event, it's a lifestyle.
Mhm. Wir tun uns hier vielleicht in Deutschland generell sehr schwer, irgendwie von unserem Glauben zu erzählen, von dem, was wir mit Jesus erleben, mit Gott erleben. Sogar in unseren Gemeinden in unserer Gemeinde, in Apostel, ist es jetzt nicht so üblich, dass man sich ständig erzählt, Mensch, guck mal, ich will dir noch erzählen, was ich mit Jesus gestern erlebt habe oder so. Ja. Was denkst du, woran könnte das liegen, dass das irgendwie nicht normal ist, dass wir, wenn wir als Christen leben, dass wir nicht normal einfach von unseren Glaubenserlebnissen erzählen?
Felix, that's such a good question, and that's really a question, a challenge that many churches face, right? And I I would start by saying I think it's the difference between serving Jesus out of a place of duty versus delight. And I can share a short story.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, myself and Maxie, we were sitting in front of this beautiful old mosque in Jordan. And I spotted a young man dressed in devout Muslim clothes coming towards us. And he looked very anxious. He introduced himself and he sat down next to me. And then he started evangelizing us. He tried to convert us to Islam. But the poor guy was having a horrible time. I mean, he was sweating, his face is red. We are uncomfortable. It's a horrible situation, right? Yeah. And I realized afterwards, oh man, I hate being evangelized. And it's often that sense of doing something to someone, or that people are a project, and then I have to convince them or convert them somehow in their thinking towards a new way of thinking that I think makes it difficult for us to share our faith often. Mm-hmm. So I would think it might be a misunderstanding of what evangelization or discipleship is. At least for me, that was what was happening with us. And so when it's out of a lifestyle of delight, it's me partnering with God to love people and to point them to Jesus. It's not an act where I try and convince them, but I rather speak to the heart and I do it with God. And so that's authentic. That's sharing my own brokenness. Mm-hmm. And it's not trying to do everything in 5 minutes, but it's a real relationship with people that I live out over a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. So I think if we can make the shift of doing things for God and to people out of duty, and rather doing things with God out of delight and loving people, then evangelization is something that's fun and it's light, it's without burden, it's real, it's authentic, and it's something that we've fallen in love with.
Wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, würde das bedeuten, dass es nicht darum geht, irgendwie in erster Linie in die Menschen zu investieren, zu überlegen, wie kann ich denen von meinem Glauben erzählen, sondern in Gott investieren, in meine Beziehung zu Gott zu investieren und zu sagen, wie kann ich Gott in meinem Alltag erleben? Und dann wird es quasi passieren, dass ich was zu erzählen habe oder dann passiert es plötzlich, dass ich was erzähle, weil es so normal ist, wie ich das erlebe.
Absolutely. I would say it's by starting your day and saying, God, fill me with your never-ending love. And then go and from the overflow of that love and passion, just go into the world and love people. And I have found that God is inherently missional. Mm-hmm. He's restoring the world back to himself all the time. People that feel marginalized or on the edges, he's saying, no, you're not, you're mine. And I'm including you back into my kingdom. And so if I partner with God to do that, it's a joy. That's where the adventure is. That's where the passion is. But when I try and do things in my own steam and out of a sense of responsibility and duty, I don't find life there. And often people can feel it, right? Mm-hmm. There's a friend of mine, my mentor, he worked in Kabul for several years. And he worked with hippies living on the streets. There was on the hippie route in search of enlightenment. And so for a couple of weeks, he was sharing with this young American man that was living on the streets of Kabul. And after sharing Jesus with this young man for a couple of weeks, he ultimately turned to this guy and he said, hey, I've been telling you about Jesus now for quite some time, so what do you think? And then this hippie turned to my friend and he said, listen, man, I love your Jesus, but I can't stand you. and that's often what happens, right? As people, I've not found one person that's not attracted to Jesus. Mm-hmm. But it's often Christianity or our us and this that could be the obstacle for people encountering God. And if I think we let go of that sense of duty, of weight, and just partner with God out of delight, people can have an opportunity to experience who Jesus is.
Mhm. Wir starten demnächst einen Glaubenskurs, wo wir ja bewusst evangelisieren, also wo wir Leuten von Jesus erzählen. Ist das dann irgendwie kontraproduktiv? Also ist das dann der falsche Weg oder?
No, I think anything that we do to give people an opportunity to learn from Jesus, to learn about Jesus, to encounter His goodness is good. I think the challenge is that as a church, we are over-inundated with information. So we have a lot of good teaching. We have a lot of good reading and material. The difference between taking in information and acting on it is two different worlds, right? Mm-hmm. And Jesus asked us to make disciples. He said, "Go out and make disciples and teach them to obey. Mm-hmm. Teach them to follow me." And so I would just challenge churches or any programs like that to say, Jesus said, "My life and teachings are to be lived and practiced and seen to be true." So if we do something like that, is to find simple ways of practicing, challenging your leaders to go out and practice Jesus' life and to see it to be true. Because that's where the experience of Holy Spirit is unlocked. That's where we encounter God as on mission, reaching out to people. Mm. But I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
Ja. Deutschland wird ja auch als das Land der Dichter und Denker bezeichnet. Also wir denken, glaube ich, gerne und viel nach, bevor wir was tun. Könnte das vielleicht auch so unser kulturelles Problem sein, dass wir Glauben nicht leben, sondern irgendwie, wir wollen ganz viel wissen. Erzähl mir noch mehr über Gott, ich muss noch mehr in der Bibel studieren, ich muss alles wissen, bevor ich in der Lage bin, was umzusetzen. Wie erlebst du das? Wie erlebst du die deutsche Kultur da glaubensmäßig?
I think it's an action that all these things we've learned becomes really valuable. Now, the fantastic thing about all the information we've received over the years is that the moment we start saying yes to Jesus, all those things are redeemed. Mm-hmm. Immediately, they are valuable. So nothing of it's lost, right? All the stories we've heard, all the sermons, all those things can be really valuable. But it's in the action. It's in the going and partnering with Jesus where I find most life, most transformation and meaning. Mm-hmm.
Wie erzählst du Menschen von deinem Leben mit Jesus, die Jesus nicht kennen? Oder unser Gottesdienst hat den Titel "Willst du mit mir gehen?" Ja, nein, vielleicht. Ist eine sehr plumpe Frage. So. Gibt auch so immer dieses "Kennen Sie Jesus?", die Menschen, die Leute einfach so ansprechen, wo man denkt, so, das, was du eben auch schon gesagt hast, so dieses, ne, ich will dir was überstülpen und der andere ist gar nicht offen dafür. Aber so die Frage, wie erzählst du von Jesus und wie lädst du Leute ein? Also wie stellst du die Frage eigentlich, das, was du auch eben erzählt hast mit dem Amerikaner, der den dann gefragt hat, Mensch, ich habe dir jetzt so viel von Jesus erzählt, was hältst du denn von Jesus? Also wie machst du das?
That's a great question. So I think what shifted for us is that people are not projects, and evangelism is not something I do to someone, and I don't have to convert or convince them of anything. I believe that God is at work in your life, in your family, that you are asking certain questions that only you and God know about. And so I can partner with Jesus in simply pointing you maybe 1 degree closer to God. So I would ask questions, I would tell stories from my own life, or I would tell Jesus stories. And I try and do it in a simple language so that a 5-year-old will understand it. And then I will ask some more questions and say, if this is true, what are we going to do about it? But I try and partner with what is going on in the person's life that's in front of me. It's a culture that's different than my own. I'm trying to be aware of that culture, trying to be aware of what's important to them, what language do I use when I speak to a German friend compared to an Arabic friend or someone from Persia. And so I would adapt my language as well. Depending on the context or the religion. But ultimately, I just simply want to lift Jesus up. I don't want to try and convert someone from one culture or religion to another. I believe that when they start following Jesus or they fall in love with Him, those things will happen naturally. And Jesus, again, I've not found anybody that when they see who Jesus is, that they're not attracted to Him.
Wie zeigt sich Jesus denn in deinem Leben? Warum bist du so begeistert davon? Hast du mal ein Beispiel für mich, wie ich Jesus entdecken könnte? Oder hast du ein Beispiel, wie Jesus ganz konkret in deinem Leben wirkt? Weil sowas kenne ich nicht, das fehlt mir.
And shortly I could just say that myself and my wife, we had encountered a love about 8 years ago that had changed our lives forever. And since then, I've just been in pursuit of that love. And ultimately, I found that in living the teachings of Jesus, I found most of the answers to what is the good life, what is reality, what does it mean to be a good person, what is a good person. Most of those questions have been answered for me in simply following him.
Kannst du einmal zum Beispiel, was ist ein gutes Leben? Welche Antwort hast du darauf? Welche Antwort hat dir Jesus auf die Frage gegeben?
What is a good life?
Ja.
I mean, Jesus is incredible in answering this. So at the moment, what I'm practicing, we just had twins, right? It's turned our lives upside down. I have to say, like, never in my life have I been confronted with worry and stress about the future as I have been in this season. I mean, it's always just been me and my wife. It's so easy to say, we're going to move to Jordan for and go live there. Or we're going to move to Germany and live there. Or we were dreaming about now there's 2 babies in the picture. Yeah. Immediately I'm a father. Yeah. I'm worried about their future. I'm worried about creating an environment that's safe and good for them. And this burden at times feels overwhelming, honestly. And just recently I was meditating on this and thinking, how to respond. And I was reminded of a story where Jesus once said, "Is life not more than the food we eat or the clothes we wear?" And he said, if you walk in a garden and you look at the birds of the field and how beautifully they are dressed and how God provides for them, or you look at the flowers in the field and how beautiful they are and how God provides for them. And his invitation was to say, stay in the moment. Don't be distracted or overwhelmed by worry. Stay in the moment, be present. And so, something that I'm practicing now that I've learned from Jesus is to not allow fear or worry to distract me from enjoying my babies, but to rather practice thankfulness. So I'll get up in the mornings and I'll find one thing that I can just say that I'm thankful to. I'm just say, God, I'm just thankful that Sophia yesterday, for the first time, she started showing 2 teeth in the bottom of her nose. It kept me up the whole night, but man, I'm thankful for those 2 teeth. So when I start practicing thankfulness, it changes the way I think about life. And I believe that's the good life. Jesus taught me so many things that I've started practicing in my life that I could see has an impact on my marriage and the people around me. Like, for instance, practicing living in the opposite spirit. If someone is angry towards me, I show love towards them.
Wie machst du das?
I'm an architect, and I had a construction site as a young architect. And I had a builder that did not like the fact that I was younger than him. And many times builders just think architects are arrogant. Yeah. And they are. And so we had a lot of conflict, and our practice, this was the way that my boss had ran the practice, with a lot of conflict. And it was during this time that myself and Maxie started following Jesus, that he really changed our lives. I really started learning from him and trying to practice his life. And I'd learned this principle about acting in the opposite spirit. So I was on this construction site, and the builder wasn't doing his work, and I had to stop playing him. And I told this to him over the phone, and he said, "I'm coming to your office now. I'm going to come beat you up, you young architect. Who are you to tell me, you're not going to pay me anymore?" So I put down the phone, and I think, what am I going to do now? Normally, I would just cancel the contract. But I remember this invitation to act in the opposite spirit. So I go downstairs, I make coffee, I go and wait at the front door of the office for the contractor. He comes up to the office with his SUV, and he brakes and he slams the door, and he comes out, and there he finds me at the front door smiling or inviting. And I invite him in, and I say to him, "I'm convinced that we will find a solution today. I'm sorry for the way I acted over the phone, but I want to hear why you are struggling on site." And this is the first time this guy had experienced this, so all anger went away. And we were able to solve it within 30 minutes. And he left, and my boss looked over the mezzanine, because it's an open office, and he was like, "What just happened?" And I said, "I have no idea. I'm trying something new. And that's the good life, Felix. It can be very countercultural if we start practicing the life of Jesus. So, I mean, it's not a short answer always, but I would say Jesus gives us the answer to the good life. Again, your question is how would I disciple people? People are not projects. So I want to get to know someone, sincerely love them, pray for them, listen to them. And I want to see what God is doing in their lives. And I want to point them to my King. And every person I come across is an opportunity to disciple. The person behind the till, the person delivering my Amazon packages, my neighbor, every person I meet is an opportunity to just show God's goodness and love and generosity.
Wow. Auf der Homepage von All Nations habe ich einen Satz gefunden, der dir sehr gut gefällt. Wenn eine Gemeinde keine missionarische Gemeinde ist, widerspricht sie sich selbst und dämpft den Geist. Kann man vielleicht auch noch anders ausdrücken, aber was würdest du sagen, wann ist eine Gemeinde missionarisch und wann nicht?
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic question. It really is about what is your definition of church, Felix. If in my mind, at its core, the definition of church is missional. But often we make the mistake of celebrating one or either two of the three loves, right? As a church, we would either be very good at loving God together, or be very good at loving each other, but then we neglect loving those that are on the edges of society, the marginalized, or those that are lost. But I've found deepest community when we love each other around the mission of Jesus. As where we say, being on mission is not a program. It's not something that it's not an elective. It's who we are. It's our culture. And God is at work, so why will we not be at work? We want to be at work. And if it becomes part of our culture, it becomes part of our story and our purpose and our passion, it has an incredible impact on society. So I've seen countless examples of people, ordinary people, broken people, that would say yes to Jesus and simply going and sharing a story or loving someone, and then they encounter God there in a way that transforms their lives, and they come back and they start implementing that in their family or in their community. So being on mission with Jesus, I believe, is not an elective for the church, it is the church. I believe the church is God's plan, redemptive plan for the city. Apostel Kirche is the redemptive plan for Eisendorf. It's God's strategy to bring about change.
Also es könnte sein, ich denke jetzt mal so an die deutsche Kirche oder die Kirche in Deutschland, es könnte sein, dass wir in dem Sinne nicht mehr missionarisch sind, weil wir eigentlich nicht mehr mit Jesus leben. Wow. Also könnte das passieren? Dass man sagt, wir sind Kirche als Institution und nicht als diejenigen, die in Gemeinschaft mit Jesus sind und mit Jesus agieren?
Wow. Well, you're the one to speak into that, I would think. I don't have the experience or the knowledge to really speak into that. I can speak from my own experience. It's that institutional Christianity often, when something becomes an institution, becomes a religion. It's the same as any other religion. It might be a set of tactics or a set of rules that we practice. It's very difficult to multiply that. It's very, and then you might, you might spend most of your time doing things that has a sense of spirituality, but it's not really spiritual. And we have to work really hard at convincing people that it is, or trying to motivate them to come or be a part of it, right? Somehow.
Ja.
But I found that when we partner with God and His mission, we don't have to convince, I don't have to market too much. I don't have to event manage too much because God is at work. He's drawing people to Himself. And He is busy in this neighborhood, in this city. And it's really discerning what that is and joining Him. And it's unfair to often look at the leadership within the church and say, well, you guys have to make it happen for us, right? We are all called. And I would find that good leaders, which I have experienced within Apostle, are leaders that give people the permission to lead and to follow their passion and to encourage and resource them to do it. And that's where we see multiplication. That's where we see growth. To say everyone is a leader. Everyone is called. Everyone has a community where God is working and God is inviting them to be a part of it. And if we can help people move away from the old traditional idea of evangelism that feels weighted, right? That feels like duty. Understand that most often it's connected to your passion. What is your passion? So yes, it's not programs or projects necessarily, but it's a church that celebrates being missional with God. It's telling the stories of the people in your community that is missional and resourcing and supporting them.
Marco, vielen, vielen Dank. Das war ein ganz tolles Gespräch, ganz inspirierend und ich wünsche dir alles Gute. Du bist nicht mehr lange in Deutschland. Ich wünsche dir, deiner Familie alles Gute, Gottes Segen und bin gespannt, irgendwie von dir mal wieder zu hören, was bei dir dann so passiert ist.
Thank you, Felix.